side, so we can do a vote. If everyone say yes, we just close down and go have fun in the sun. Or not. So yeah, I have to keep this for 3 seconds on the screen because we have obligations. And also a more useful reminder that Emma and Dieter are continuing to hold office hours, and you can see them on screen. Emma is doing from 8 to 9 a.m. PST on Thursday, and Dieter is doing Wednesday, so that's going to be today PST time, but it's going to be in the evening. So please do join if you have any questions, have any issues with the assignments, anything you want to talk about. They are there to help you out. And if you still haven't signed up for the Gmail reminder, you can do that. The link for that is in the CIP forum. You will receive reminders about the upcoming sessions so that you don't forget when they are. You can store them in your calendar. So today, week 11, the topic is files. In a week, Emma is going to be talking about API. So that's going to be week 12. And week 13, which is going to be 2 weeks after that. And I'm looking now at the 26th, and I'm going, is it really the 26th? Maybe I made a mistake here. I don't remember the exact date. Maybe, is it 26th, really? Oh, yeah, okay, that would be Friday.
Yeah.
Yes, that is correct. Yes, 26th, yes, because we have 2 Wednesdays in a row, and then we're going to have a Friday. So yes, we're going to be talking about nested structures. That's week 13. And now, as usual, drum roll. Oh, hold on, Nancy, you're saying all I see is a black screen below the text you're viewing. Alexander Belgio's screen. Is it my system? Does anyone else have issues viewing my screen, or is that specific to Nancy for some reason?
I think it's specific to her because I'm seeing your screen. John's
Okay,
screen.
okay. So maybe try logging off and logging on again. That could, yeah, you could try rejoining. Okay, cool. So Vicky, as usual, has a hard question for us. I mean, I failed miserably at that question. I don't know the answer, but when she sent it to me in advance and said, "Well, Alex, do you know this?" I said, like, no, I have no clue. So as usual, we're going to see a location on the next screen, and you actually have to answer 4 questions now. The 3 first questions are the same. So the name of the location, the city and the country where it's located. And then the 4th one is, it's actually connected to a classic movie. It appears in a classic movie, so you have to name the movie as well, which features this location in the chat. And whoever is the first to do it, once again, will have a choice between a Code and Place t-shirt or is it a $15 Amazon certificate?
Yeah.
Yeah. So your pick. Not everyone loves the t-shirt design, so you can always opt for the $15 certificate. And
This is the
without,
second to last time you're going to be able to get a free t-shirt out of me, just saying.
ooh,
Because my free shipping ends in like a week or something, and then I'm going to cancel my membership.
so
And
the
so
stakes are suddenly higher. All right.
so if you want a free t-shirt, this is your chance. It's
One of
somewhere.
2 less chances.
Um, it is somewhere on Earth. I'll give you a hint. This is not like a Mars or something like that. It's somewhere on Earth. And then, since we're an international group, we've had locations in where Asia, okay, I'll give you a hint. This is non-Asia. So
Okay,
that's
that
all I'm gonna say.
narrows it down quite a bit.
Well, I think the movie is the easy part, but you have to get all 4. Okay.
Okay,
I think the name and the city is the hard part. The country um
the movie
and the
are
movie
easier.
is actually not that hard if you think about it. And so I would love to give away a free t-shirt, even though I don't really love the design, but oh yeah, I see like Steve is like
Already, yeah, going
ready.
like, oh, I'm gonna get
Okay.
this. Yeah.
Drum roll. Alex, you can show it.
Yes, I will show the picture. So attention, everyone. Here is the picture.
You get 30 seconds, okay? If nobody types in 30 seconds, we're not gonna wait here forever for people to like type this. Oh, Steve, I'm
Okay.
so disappointed. I mean, hailing from Germany and you still don't know? Emma, Emma, Emma. Oh my
So
God.
Steve, it's okay. I also have no t-shirt, you know. I have no clue. Okay, so at least we have the name of the movie.
Yes. Okay. Yeah, but you need to come up with the name. Okay, I
So
think
what's the name of the location? Is there actually a specific name for
correct.
the?
People got really, really close, but they could not come up with the name. So this gazebo is located in a place called Hellbrown Palace. And I mean, I will type it in the chat so people know I'm not like making this up, okay? So the right location is Hellbrown Palace, and it is located in Salzburg, um, Austria, and this is a classic scene from The Sound of Music. When 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 these like two people were dancing. Okay, it was actually filmed in this gazebo. And then if you actually go see the gazebo, it's actually very underwhelming because in the film it looks like big and gorgeous, but the actual gazebo was actually very, very small. So I don't think anybody got it because nobody could actually name the place. So I'm sorry. We'll try again next week. Last chance. Okay.
Okay, now I'm really, really embarrassed because I went to school in Austria for a year, in Salzburg for a year. And
Ah,
now I remember that I completely, it's been so long, forgot all about it. I've been there. Of course I have. I forgot all about it. Oh God. So
That's why
embarrassed.
when I saw you, I was like, oh, you must
come on, Steve.
know.
I was so embarrassed. It was 45 years ago or even more.
Okay.
All
Aber
right.
so peinlich, so peinlich.
Aber sehr peinlich, aber naja.
Ja.
Okay.
Oh,
Well, at least I
okay.
didn't make this place up. I mean, it
That's
really does
true. That's true.
exist.
Like the next quiz is going to be something that Vicky makes up, and then you're gonna have a really
No,
hard
no, no.
time
I mean,
guessing.
I don't make any of these places up. I mean, I've actually like been to these places, took pictures, and so I use the pictures I take. So I'm sorry, better luck next week.
All right. So the plan for today. So actually, are we gonna have two T-shirts next week because this week no one is the jackpot increasing?
Well, actually, didn't we like discuss that last week? You
I don't
know,
remember. My head was not in the right place.
I thought about that, but I don't know why
Who would
anybody
need two
would want.
T-shirts, right?
Huh?
No one would need but someone then can take the T-shirt and the $15 certificate.
I guess if somebody really wants the t-shirt or the $15 gift certificate that badly, sure.
Oh, the stakes go up. Nice. All right.
Okay.
So today,
Well,
today we're
despite the
going.
stakes going up, you still have to like get the place.
Sure, that's the way it works, but still,
Okay.
if someone does. Anyway, today we're talking about files. We're going to have two assignments, and we're going to try do both in breakout rooms as last time, and then we're going to discuss the solutions together. Once again, the 40 minutes are just, 2 hours divided into three parts. So I think we're going to go through the theory faster because it's not as long as it was last time with strings. So files. Working with files is actually a very important part in programming, and there are some people who say, well, until you reach the file stage, you're sort of kiddie programming. You're not really programming because you do not have a way to retrieve data from outside and to store data outside between runs of your program. And for most real application, that doesn't work. Most real application have a way of working with data which is actually not a part of the program itself, so it has to come from without. So that's what we're going to talk about today. Python can easily work with plain text files, and when I say plain text files, I mean files where the bits, the ones and zeros, represent specific ASCII characters. So remember last time we talked about this. Each character is a certain ASCII character in a string, for instance. And with files, it could be the same if it's a text file. So what we can do is actually read text data from files, and we could also save text data to files. And it's really quite easy with Python. Also, there is a special, it's also text-based. So JSON is a text-based syntax, but it's a special text-based syntax that simplifies the storage and retrieval of data saved in a dictionary-like format. So basically, in your program, you can load JSON data into a dictionary and work with a dictionary. And then you can actually, for instance, make changes to the data and save the dictionary back into a JSON file. And it's going to look very, very similar to the way it looks in Python. Very small changes, differences between JSON and an actual Python dictionary. And to do that, Python has a separate JSON module that allows you to work with JSON files. And let's start talking about JSON. So in any program where you want to work with JSON files, you would need to import the module. So that would be import space JSON. That one is pretty self-explanatory. And then if you want to read the entirety of the JSON data from a file into a dictionary, what you need to do is open the file, and the syntax for opening the file, you can see it here. You would write with open, and then in parentheses you would have the file name, and then write as file. So basically you're saying take this file name and open it as a file object. And then you just need one line. You need to come up with some sort of variable for the data. So it could be data. And then you say equals JSON.load. And inside the parentheses, you have the same variable file as you have here. And what this does is read the entire file. And if it's a correct JSON file, it will automatically convert the text into a dictionary and save it into the variable, whatever its name is here. So after this, you can work with this data dictionary how you would work with any regular dictionary. So this is very easy to do. And if you want to do the reverse, meaning save a dictionary in a JSON format into a file so that you have a snapshot of your program's state, for instance, before you quit the program, and then when you launch it next time, you can again access this dictionary. The difference is that the first line is almost the same. The only difference is that after file name, you have to place a comma and a second argument, which is a W in quotes. The W is the mode in which you're opening the file, and W stands for write. So when you're opening without this argument, it's read. The same can be achieved by writing file name comma R for read. If you want to write something to a file, you have to write file name comma W as file. And then, once again, only one line is necessary. You say JSON.dump, and then you have two arguments: the data that you want to dump, so the dictionary that you want to dump, and the file into which you want to dump this data. And after you run this, you will actually get a JSON file with the entire contents of your dictionary. So very easy, very simple, one line, and you can swap data back and forth to save the state of your program. The only issue with JSON files is that JSON files are human readable. This is both a advantage and a disadvantage. The advantage is you can actually open a JSON file with any text editor, look at it and understand what's in there. The negative is that you can actually see the contents and change them from outside the program, which is a bad thing. For instance, if it's happening, let's say you're writing a game and you need to save the game state. And if you don't want the user, the player, to be able to change the game state outside of the program, like instead of 100 points, he can write in like, I have 1,000,000 points, and that would work. So in this case, you would need to somehow encode your data in order to make sure that the user cannot change it from outside the program. Steve, I see your question about no R. You do not have to specify the R because the R is used by default. You can write it to make it more explicit, but if no mode is given, then Python assumes that it's read mode by default. Yeah, and I see, Dieter, you added all of the options that are available: R for reading, W for writing, X for exclusive creation, A for appending, B for binary, T for text mode, which is also default. And then you have the plus, which allows you to both read and write at the same time. We're not going to go today into all of these modes because often you don't need them. If you just need to read stuff from a file and write back to the file, it's enough to only know R and W. The other ones are, more extracurricular. Also, Vicky, I saw your raised hand. Did you want to add something or ask something?
Yes. I wanted to kind of
and to answer your question, RB is for read binary.
yeah. I have two kind of questions slash comments just for people. Okay. So let's say if you were to write a statement like with open file name R, but then like you instead of using JSON load, you actually use JSON dump, what do you think would happen?
I think you'd get an error.
I
I
didn't
think you'd
ask
get an
you,
error saying
Polyakov.
that.
I know you know the answer.
Oh, sorry, you're not asking me.
Yes, of course I'm not asking you.
I don't know. Maybe you are asking me. You didn't specify this, so that's why I'm answering.
Okay, well, anyways, yes, you would get an error. And then my second question is, okay, I think in this Stanford slides, they also talk about RB. And so I was wondering if you were to use RB with certain kind of files that are not compatible with RB, such as text, such as TXT, what do you think is going to happen?
Are you asking me or everyone else?
Well, this I am asking you because I don't think, um, well, um, because I think I asked you before and I sort of experimented, and then with certain formats, it seems to work, such as
Well, we now
JSON.
know that it works with JSON. So
Right.
JSON now knows how to work both with R and
Right.
RB.
Um, I
If
did
it's a
not
regular
test.
text file, my guess would be that it would not produce an error. It would work, but it would give you gibberish.
Yes. Um, I basically told you that the output looked really weird.
Yeah.
Um, I mean, you would get some of the output. It would just look really weird. And that I don't really know what happens if you were to do it with like a CSV file or something like that.
A CSV file is actually also a text file. There
Oh,
is
really?
nothing special about a CSV file. The extension only means, like, dear user, this file contains data separated by commas. That's the only difference. In reality, it's also a text-based file.
Okay. And so basically you would use RB only for binary, right?
Yes, yes.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
Okay, so and since we're not into binary, that's the reason why I did not even go into that, because going into binary is a very is a very separate topic that I'm not going to tackle today. And one more thing, this is important because when working with JSON, you will run into this issue. It's very important to remember that when you are saving JSON data, all of the JSON data is always saved as strings, even if the original data type is different. So for instance, if you have in your dictionary keys that are integers, they will be turned into strings that look like these integers. So why this is important is because when you next time you read this JSON data, you will have either to turn the keys, for instance, back into integers by using the int function, or you would have to bear in mind that all of the data is in strings and plan accordingly. So depending on the program, one of these two options is workable, but otherwise you could get errors like saying there is no such key in the dictionary, and you know that there is such a key in the dictionary, but there isn't, can be found because the key is actually a string now instead of a integer, for instance. So I think that's it actually about JSON. So if there are any questions on JSON, this would probably be the best time to ask them before we go into working with regular text files, which have nothing to do with JSON. And while you're thinking, I'll eat a piece of candy. No? No questions? I'm still chewing my candy.
I have a question. And that is when you take a dictionary that you define in Python, say, and you dump it into a JSON file. Now you read it again. That data that you had on that slide, is that automatically a dictionary, just maybe with the wrong key type, or do you have to do something to make it a dictionary?
I do not believe that you have to do anything to make it a dictionary, so it's actually read in as a complete dictionary. So you immediately get a dictionary. That's the way that JSON files are parsed. I could be wrong because I have never actively worked with JSON, but I worked on the assignment which uses JSON, and I believe I have not encountered any such problem. So with a high percentage of being sure, I would say that it gives you a dictionary immediately, unless you prove me wrong.
Thank you. That was my expectation. I've worked with APIs, and like I guess Emma will teach a class on APIs, and a
Okay.
lot of the data from APIs is a JSON.
Right,
And
right.
I've always treated it just like a dictionary, and it worked, but it's kind of a trial and error thing.
Yeah. That's the way the JSON module works. It knows how to take the text part and turn it into a JSON. So that's what it does.
Alex,
Is the PDF file a JSON file? No. No. PDFs have nothing to do with JSON. Those are two very different formats, and Python has no way to read PDF files. And I mean, probably PDF readers are the only software that can read PDF files. Why would I choose a JSON file over files such as TXT or CSV? For the simple reason, hi Leah, for the simple reason that it's the easiest way to store and retrieve a dictionary. You would have to write a lot of code if you wanted to save your program state in something other than a JSON, because you would need to come up with a way to store it in a file, you would need to come up with a way to retrieve it from a file, and to make sure that you do not make any mistakes while doing it. While with the JSON, you just need one line to read it, while one line to write it. So that's the reason why you would.
oh, Alex, Alex, I have a question, a follow-up question with regard to Dieter's question.
Sure.
Um, because there was an example problem where you're trying to graph the sort of like cities with their longitude and then latitude.
Yeah,
Um, uh, however, for that example, the original file was in CSV.
yeah.
And okay, when we actually did the conversion, it did not automatically convert it uh, into JSON file. We actually had to sort of like use the comma delineation and then specified what we wanted as the key and what we wanted as the sort of
The
value. And
value,
so
sure.
I don't think it automatically converts, unless I didn't really
When did I say
understand.
that it would automatically convert? I did not say that.
Maybe I misunderstood what Dieter was asking because I thought you had said whatever Dieter was asking, um, you said it automatically converts into a
Dieter
dictionary.
was asking whether JSON files are automatically saved as dictionaries.
Oh, sorry. Okay.
It was
I
not about
misunderstood.
CSV files, and that's
Okay.
to add to what Leah was asking. So, for instance, with
Never mind.
CSV
Okay.
files, you would actually need to write code to explain to Python how you would need to parse that data
Got
to
it.
turn it into a dictionary, which requires more work. So, with JSON, it would be just one line. Okay, so I'm done with my candy, so I think we can talk about working with regular text files. So if you want to read from a regular text file, you would also first use the same line. So when you open a file, you use the same line with open file name. If you want, you can write comma R in quotes, but like I said, read mode is on by default. So you write with open file name as file. File can be changed for any other variable. So this is actually a variable name. Some people are lazier and they just use F. So they say with open file name as F. I prefer to call it a file just to make it clear that this is a file and not something else starting with the letter F. So now you have an open file, you have access to this file. And the next thing you could do is actually iterate over this file using a for loop. So for loops can also be used to go line by line through the contents of the file. Python knows how to do this. So you would iterate over each line in the file. And when I say line, I mean the entirety of characters until you get the new line character, which is /n. So that's where the line stops for the loop. And then you can do whatever you want with the line that you got. So for instance, the simplest thing would be to print a line. This is not very useful, although I like, programs that read themselves and type out their own code. This is my favorite way of showing off, what you could do with files. But anyway, let's say that we have a text file which looks like this. So it has 3 lines. It says the first line is these are the lines. The second one is in some file with an ellipsis, and the third line says Carol was here. So the question is, if we run this program, this simple 3-line program where the file name is this file, what we would get would look in the console would look like this. And you will immediately see the difference. And the difference is that there are empty lines between, each of the lines from the text file. And the question becomes, why? Where do these empty lines come from? Does anyone have an answer to this question? Because I'm sure at least some of you looked through the lectures and probably know the answer. Can someone take me through the reason why there are these empty lines when you print them?
I'd be so hurt if nobody knows because that means they did not like listen to my lecture.
Oh, that would drive you mad.
I think that there's something like a carriage return. Oh, sorry to jump in there, Steve. That's embedded that we can't see that we have to remove for each line, and that's why we have the strip command.
Okay, but let's try to parse this. You're absolutely right. There is a carriage return, but you sort of know that the carriage return is there because if you look at the text file, they are on separate lines. So if they are on separate lines, there has to be a carriage return because otherwise they would have been in one long line. So that's printed the same way it's in the text file. But the question is, where does the extra line come from?
Is it
Any
treating the
thoughts?
carriage return as a separate character, a separate string? I don't know. I just know that that it keeps showing up and we have to strip it.
That's true, but we're going to strip it from the lines themselves. But then, even after we strip it, we still would get them on separate lines. So how does that work? Why would we still get separate lines if we strip them?
Oh, you mean why without the extra space? Because we're printing each line that we're reading in separately
Yes.
in the for loop.
Yes. But do you know why each line is actually printed in a separate line? Why aren't they all printed in one long line?
Because each line it's just being pulled out as one string for each line, and then we're removing the carriage return. So that single string, that first line is just one string that we're printing, and then we do the next line in the file. That's a separate string with the carriage return that we strip out. And so that second line is just a whole string, so we print that whole string.
The correct answer, Dimitrios wrote the correct answer in the chat. The correct answer is that print, by default, adds a new line character at the end of the function. So whenever you print, this is, for most people don't understand this because they're sort of used, okay, I gave, Python a line, it printed that line, so the next time I print a different line, should it be on a different line? But in many programming languages, that's not the case. For instance, in C or C++, you have to explicitly tell the language that you want to insert an extra space. Otherwise, it would be printed without the new line. It would be all printed in one line. So Python sort of makes it a bit easier doing the carriage return by default. And this is what happens here. You're actually printing the line with the carriage return, which is at the end of the line in the text file, and then you're getting an additional carriage return from the print. So that's where you get two from. And this is the reason why we actually add the strip, because when we add the strip, we remove the carriage returns from the text file, and all of the returns that are remaining are the ones that print gives you by default. And now we do not have the extra empty lines in the console. So does that make sense?
Yes.
Yeah, Alex, a comment. Carriage return and new lines, they're actually different characters.
That's true.
Carriage return is /R. And
/R.
in Windows, you have them both, which is often confusing to Windows users.
Right. I switched to carriage return because people were discussing carriage return in the chat, but you're absolutely right. Thanks for pointing it out. Actually, carriage return and new line are different because carriage return returns to the beginning of the current line. It does not move to the next line, while new line sort of moves to the next line. And this comes from typewriters, where you had to do both. You had to move the carriage to the beginning, and then it would go to the next line with a satisfying ding sound. So yeah, this is important because there is a subtle difference between a carriage return and a new line. So I know there were some things in the chat.
It looks like it has more
If you read Canera, there's a great end story. Okay, I have not read the seminal work on C, and I don't think I ever will. But I'm sure there are great stories about the /n character.
It's got a princess and everything.
Ooh, nice. Maybe I should read it then.
Yes, you should.
All right. So, Vicky, did you want to say something?
Well, I actually have a question. So,
Shoot.
so are you saying that, print implicitly has like a backslash n? And sorry, I basically what you said about like the print has a backslash n, and if you're like stripping it, it leaves like a backslash n.
Yeah. So the print, the backslash does not go anywhere from print. The backslash actually goes away from the line that you're reading. So when you read the line into string, you have, for instance, the first line would be these are the lines slash n. When you use strip on it, the slash n is discarded, and what remains is these are the lines. So when you print it, you print these 4 words, and then the print function moves the carriage to the next line, the
So,
cursor.
so I guess like is it proper to think about it? There's actually two backslash n at the end of every line, because one that's coming from the line itself, and then the other one comes from the print. And by using strip, you only get rid of one of them.
Yes. It would be a bit incorrect to think that every line has 2, because it doesn't. It's the print that gives it
Print.
the second one, but the idea, you got the idea correct, yes.
So, so then the question becomes, okay, I don't know why anyone would want to do this, but if I just want to print everything on one line, like to have like a gigantic line, okay,
Yes.
um, how would I do that?
If you
Um,
want to do that, you have to
uh,
replace the default AND character for print. So for instance, you could write print line dot strip, then I add a comma and write AND equals empty string. And the AND parameter shows
um,
what character is printed at the end of each print statement. So remember last time when we did hello with the
right.
hyphens, that was the situation. If you do this, then you would actually have all these 3 lines written in one long line, printed
Yeah.
in one long line.
Um, could you accomplish that also using like concatenation to get rid of the backslash n?
You could, because when you concatenate, you do not add any extra slash n's. Concatenation adds what's there. It does not add anything extra. So for instance, you could, instead of printing these lines, you could add them to a variable, like glue them together, and then print it after the loop, and you would also get one long line.
Got it. Okay, thank you.
All right? Excellent. And we will get back to this in a bit when we're going to talk about writing something to a file. This is because this is an important issue. Okay, so we talked about text files, and previously we mentioned CSV files. So a CSV file is basically the same text file. It's a text file, with the only difference being that the data is separated by commas. And if you would want to read something from a CSV file, you would also go using the for loop line by line. But then after, doing the strip, so getting rid of the extra slash n, you could also remember when we discussed strings, we talked about the split function. So the split function takes a string and separates it into a list of substrings using this character as the delineator, or whatever you call it. So in this case, since it's a comma separated values file, you would need to use the comma as the symbol, and then you would have a list of values. So for instance, let's say that we have this weird CSV file when you have 1, 2, 3, or you have A, B, C, that's the second line, and the third line is 1, 2, 3. And the question is, what would you get in the console if you use this 3 lines of code? What would you actually get when you print the results of reading and doing this with the text? And the correct answer is you would get 3 lists. So in the first case, you would get 1, 2, and 3 as 3 values of a list. And pay attention, these 3 values are strings. So in no way does Python know that these characters are supposed to represent numbers. So it stores all of them like strings, the same as with the JSON file. And then you have A, B, C, 3 values in a list. And the third one is 3 strings, uno, dos, tres, also in a list. So this is the way you would work with a CSV file, which is often used to store matrix-like data. So for instance, an Excel file could be represented like this, because you have rows, you have columns. So each row in an Excel file could be represented as values in that row separated by commas. And then you can build for instance, 2D, you could build a 2D list to represent the matrix that's an Excel file. Let me quickly look in the chat. Delimiter, okay, thank you, Demetrius, for the word. Yes, I was using delineator, whatever. Delimiter sounds good. So yeah, and now, so that was a discussion on reading files. So we talked about reading from a JSON file, from a regular text file, and the specifics of reading from a CSV file, which is also a text file, but has values separated by commas. So now let's talk about writing to a file. For instance, you have some data generated by a program and you want to save this data for future use or what have you. For instance, let's say we have a list of words, and now we go into Deutsch. We have eins, zwei, und drei, and we want to save this data into a file. So we would open a file, we would say with open, once again, some sort of file name, and don't forget, you need to include the mode W for write as file. So now the file is created and accessible for writing. Then you would go, for instance, using a loop, you would go through the list. So for word in words, we would iterate first the first string, then the second string, then the third string. And here we would use the write method. So what the write method does is actually put a string, write a string into the file. So you write file dot write, and then in parentheses you would have word. So the interesting thing is, if we were to run this program, this is the result which we would get in the file, which is a bit counterintuitive for users of the print function, because we are used to print adding a new line character after each line. But the thing is that write as a method does not do that. So if you want to write to add a new line character into the file that you're creating, you would actually have to explicitly concatenate that new line character to the string that you're writing into a file. So if you do this, as you can see, I concatenate the /n to each word from the list. So it's an explicit new line. You would actually get eins, then you have the new line, zwei, new line, drei, new line, and then after that you would have an empty line. So the file would actually be 4 lines long, because after the third one you sort of added another empty line, so the fourth one will just be an empty line. And sometimes this is important, because when you start reading from here, you would expect every line to have some data, and then at the end you have an empty line, and you forgot about it, and your program crashes because of that. So you need to remember that there could be empty lines at the end of your file. So this is it for writing files. So if there are any questions on reading files, writing files, anything concerning files, now would be a good time to ask before we go into the assignments. So Leah, you're saying the end parameter only works for the print function. Well, the end parameter is part of the print function. So it's written in the functionality of the print function. And there are, I suppose there are probably some other functions which have a parameter which is called end, but you cannot know that for sure. So the answer is yes. Mansi, you're saying why the last empty line? Once again, you are saying like for each word that we have, you are saying save the word and add a new line. So we have eins, new line, zwei, new line, drei, new line. So you do get the fourth line. The cursor moves to the fourth line, but then there is nothing there. So it stays an empty line. Does that make sense, Mansi? Because if you do not want the last empty line, you need to come up with a way to remove the /n here. You do not need to add the /n to the last value in the list. So for instance, you could add a condition saying, if this is the last index of the list, do not add the /n, and then you would not have the empty line. But if you do it like this, you would have an empty line at the end. And this is a common mistake, or a common oversight, I would say. It's not a mistake, that you need to bear in mind. Yes, and the text here, it's a comment, so that's why it's in orange. It's not actually in the file. This is just a commentary that there is an empty line here. It doesn't actually say that. That's true. Vicky, I think I saw your hand go up and down.
So, I don't know if you want to make a comment. Like, this is just one way to read and write to files. And then, basically, if you use this way, this block of read and write, it closes the file automatically after it's done. But there are at least one or two other ways you can read or write files. I'm not sure exactly what the trade-offs are. I think those other ways might be faster, but they don't necessarily close the file after it's done, right?
That's the reason why I do not want to go into this, just not to make this too complicated. You are talking about simply opening without using the with word, but there are no trade-offs that make it better. So you should always just use with in order to make sure that the file is closed after you're done working with it. So let's now go into that. It's no one would use open without with these days. So
Really?
okay, so then I have a question. How do you check for the existence of the empty line in a file? When you go line by line, you can always check. You can write if line, or if line, equals empty string. And that would you would actually check whether that line has anything in it or not. Because the condition if line will be true if it's not an empty string, because an empty string in a condition would return false. Any non-empty string in a condition would return true. So this is the easiest way to check whether a line is empty or not. And you would always do something only if the line is not empty. If it's empty, the condition just skips and goes to the next line. This is the easiest way of skipping over empty lines.
Thank you.
No problem. Okay, so I think it's high time to go into our assignments. We have two. So the first one is called smallest unique positive integer. And the way it's worded is the following. So we need to implement a function which is called find smallest int for integer. It takes in the name of a file as an argument. This file contains one integer per line, so we don't know how many lines are there, but there is one integer per line. It can be a positive integer, it could be a negative integer, it could be 0, and it should return the smallest unique positive integer. So what this means, it should ignore negative integers and 0. It should ignore integers which have multiple copies in the file. So if you have the integer 1 on line 1, and then you have the integer 1 on line 5, this integer should be ignored. So only unique integers which are present only once inside the file. And then among these, you need to select the smallest and print, well, not print, but return that integer. So for instance, if this is the file that we're talking about, we have 13 minus 37, 42, 13, 54, and 0. The smallest unique positive integer here is 42, because 13 is twice, minus 37 is negative, 0 is negative, so we only have 42 and 54, which are positive and unique, and among these two, 42 is the smallest, so that's why we write 42. So this is the first assignment. And my question here is, do we, like last time, do we want to make the assignments one by one? This is a question to Emma and Dieter and Vicky. Do you think this is a better way of doing it? And we go into the second one, once we reach that.
Yeah, both Vicky and I have said yes.
Okay, cool. I do not see it anywhere, so I can only hear you right now. Okay, so then let's first work on this problem. And the interesting thing about this problem, it's obviously about reading from a file, but that's not the most interesting part about it. Reading from a file is easy, but then you would need to come up with an algorithm on how to actually find that smallest unique positive integer. So I think that's the more challenging part of the assignment than actually reading stuff from a file. So this is something that you'd need to discuss. And as usual, we'll have several breakout rooms. We'll have a room for those who actually completed this assignment, so you can maybe discuss different ways of how you can complete it, because there are different algorithms of doing this. This assignment has multiple ways of solving it. And then we'll have second room for those who either did not attempt it or have not finished it despite trying. So now you would have the opportunity to discuss it among yourselves and solve it. Shall we do the split?
Yeah, so do you think 10 minutes for this problem would be appropriate, or do you want
I'd
longer?
go 15.
Okay. Okay. I'm gonna open out the breakout rooms, and then you could, assign yourselves. And then again, if you're feeling like shy or lonely today, feel free not to join. You can just stay in the breakout room. There will be an SL there. And then if you don't want to talk to the
You mean
SL,
not in the break room, but in the main room?
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. We won't bother you. Okay. So, in order to join the breakout room, there is a square button at the bottom that says breakout room. You actually have to um, hit that in order to see the breakout room. And the three breakout rooms is at the very bottom of that screen.
Vicky, where do you want us to be?
Oh, well, I'm all about minimizing work for myself. So, you guys could take your dibs. I figure, since you haven't worked with the completed people, if you want to work with the completed people, that's fine.
No, that's fine. Let's see. I'll take not completed number 1.
Oh, okay. All right.
Let me jump into
Excuse me, I
the
cannot see those options on the screen.
Okay, if you cannot see the option, tell me which breakout rooms you want to join and we can manually
I would
assign
like
you.
to join the one which didn't complete a task.
Okay.
Hmm?
Okay, and then for people who could not find the breakout room, you could just type in the chat which one you want to join, and that Emma and I we can assign you. So Alex, you can
I assigned Carlos.
no. You could assign yourself like where you want to be. You could
Okay, let me go to completed.
okay. Emma, do you want to take not completed number 2? I'll just like hang out in the main room so I don't have to do anything.
Sure, that sounds good. I just want to make sure that everyone who wanted to move has moved.
Yes.
Um,
And so everyone in the main room, if you want to be in a breakout room, let us know. Okay, so Blossom, Maya, uh, Alyssa, you guys are okay just hanging out here?
Yes.
Okay, and then G and iPad. Okay. Well, I'm gonna be here
I'm
sipping my
fine.
tea. If you have any questions, feel free to ask. Or if you want me to like walk through the algorithm, I can do that too. Whatever is helpful to you guys.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Vicky.
Sure.
At this point, I'm just a tourist.
I have so much catching up to do. I figured I might as well just watch today.
Okay.
About it.
Well, I mean, you might as well try to attempt it. I can share my screen if that's helpful.
Okay.
Um, okay. So okay. So the main program is written for us. Okay. So the way that I did this program is basically I opened a file. Okay. Um, and then for line in file, I basically strip um, that new line symbol. And then because everything in this file, I believe it was a text file, and so everything reads in is you know, treat it as a string or text. I basically had to type convert it into an integer, okay, and then saved it in a variable called num. And then I actually defined an empty list of numbers and then added each numbers into this list. So the way that I did this problem is I kind of like um, cheated a little bit. Um, because there's a function in Python called sorted, okay, that it will take a list and then sort it from the smallest to the biggest. And so I basically took this list that contained all of the numbers from the file, and then I basically sorted that list, okay, from smallest to biggest. And then I saved this into a new list called sorted numbers, okay? And then I used a for loop. And so I figured, okay, once a number is sorted, it will be from the smallest to the biggest, right? And so I basically used a for loop to kind of like go through each number. And then I had like a triple and statement. So the triple and statement, I basically am looking for numbers that are greater than zero. And so it has to be positive, okay? And then I figure if that number is unique, okay, if that number is unique, basically, um, if you look at the positional indices of that number, either before or after that number, it will be different than that number itself. Okay. And so I basically looked at that number and said that number does not equal to the number that comes after it, nor does it equal to the number before it. And so if a number satisfies all of these three conditions, it's basically in a sorted list, and then it's greater than zero. It's not the same as the number coming after it or the number before it, then it must be the smallest unique integer. And then I would return that value back to the main program. And that's how I solved it. There are other ways to do it. But Alex basically challenged me to come up with a code that was shorter than his. So I think well, I mean, I didn't see his solution, but my guess is my code would be shorter than his.
Wow. Thank you so much for sharing this, Vicky.
Yeah, I mean, I
So
will
helpful.
I will post my solution in the Google Drive afterwards too.
Awesome.
Do you guys have any questions about the second problem or want to talk about the second problem or want to talk about anything else? Otherwise, I'll just leave you guys alone. It's fine.
Oh my, thank you so, so much. I just have a lot of catching up to do, but this was so helpful.
I'm glad.
Did you say something about the next problem after this one, or the
Yeah,
problem before this one?
yeah, I mean, if you have questions about the groceries problem, we can talk about that too. There will be a separate breakout room, but we could talk about that too.
Okay. Thank you, Vicky.
One or save the value as one. So this is clear.
Yeah.
And then you go over the dictionary, and basically instead of what Anna did, where she used the count function to count the number of instances, you just check whether the key is positive and the value is one, meaning it's a unique number. And if it is, you in the not complete rooms. Did you manage to come up with a solution in these like 15-20 minutes or not?
Not all the way. We made some progress, but we got stuck on exactly the conditions, because there's so many conditions as you walk through the list.
It's true. That's true. And Emma, in your case, your group's case.
Similar.
Okay. So let me walk you through a solution. Like I said, it's not the only one, so you can challenge me at any point in time. Obviously, the first thing we would need to do, we need to open the file. So we would go with open file name. I could add the R, so let me do that for explicity's sake and say for R as file. And then I would want to read it line by line. So I would go for line in file. The first thing I would need to do is strip the /n because I do not need the /n's. And then I would immediately turn it into an integer using the int function, because the assignment tells me that every line will contain an integer. It could be negative, positive, 0, but it would be an integer. And then I would save this into some variable, let's call it number. So from this point on, there are several things I could do. The first thing I could do is read all the numbers into some sort of list. So let me create a list which would be called numbers. Initially, it will be an empty list. And then I could either add all of them, or I can perform some sort of sorting. So for instance, I can check each number for being positive, and only if it's positive, I will add it to the list. So I could write if number is more than 0, only in this case, I would append it to the list of numbers. So now let's think about the second condition, because the second condition, it's not only supposed to be positive, it's also supposed to be unique. And the question becomes, can I, at this point in time, understand whether a number is unique or not? And in my opinion, the answer is no, because in order to understand the number's uniqueness, I have to be able to see all the numbers and compare them. And in order to read all the numbers, I have to get them from the file. So at this point in time, I cannot be sure that the numbers are unique or not. So I can, for instance, call this list positive numbers. So because I know that there will be positive, but I do not know whether they're unique or not. So here, after this, I am done with reading the file. So I have this list of positive numbers, and now two things are remaining. I need to make sure that there are only unique numbers in there, and then I need to find the smallest one. So let's start with uniqueness. I will create a new list which is called unique positive numbers to make it clear what we're storing in there, and it will initially be an empty list. And then I will go for number in positive numbers and perform the following. I will write a condition if in the list positive numbers the count of numbers is equal to 1. So what this signifies is if positive, this is supposed to be period. So this is a function, a list function, remember, that allows you to count the number of instances of a value inside the list. And I am interested only in those that are counted once. So there is only one instance of them. Only in this case, I will add it to the unique positive numbers list. And the reason why I have to do this separately, I cannot do it here. The reason why is because I need to have the entire list of positive numbers before actually checking whether this or that integer is unique or not. And now I have a list of unique positive numbers. So the last thing I need to do is actually find the smallest among them. And the easiest solution is to actually return the result of a function which is called min, not to confuse with our section leader min, but still. This function will return the smallest number of all the numbers which are in a list. So this was actually return the smallest one. But if for some reason you are not sure of the existence of this function, you don't know the existence of this function, you can actually write this algorithm yourself, because for instance, Martha, that's exactly what she did. So let me show you this algorithm so that you understand that it's not that difficult. So if I have a list of unique positive numbers, I would need to track the smallest one. So for instance, let's say I was to read out loud to you a list of numbers, and then at the end I would ask you which one was the smallest. The way this algorithm would work, you would actually try to remember the current as opposed to the smallest, and if the current is smaller than the smallest, you would replace the smallest in your memory. So you would also always have to remember two things: the smallest so far and the current one. You compare the current one to the smallest so far. If it's smaller, you found a new smaller number. So when you start this, which one is the smallest? Well, I would posit that the smallest one initially is the first one. I could go, smallest integer equals whatever's in the unique positive numbers at index 0, because that's the only one I know right now. And then I would go for all the integers in unique positive numbers starting from the first index, because I've just assigned the 0th index here. I would write a very simple condition. I would say, for integer. Okay, let's go like this. So if integer is actually smaller than the smallest int, in this case, I would replace the smallest int with the current integer. And when this loop is done, the smallest one will be saved in this variable. I could return it as smallest integer, and this is the way I would do it if I did not know the existence of the min function. But let's run it and make sure that, you know, I'm not pulling your leg here. So let's run this from the terminal. So if you are not sure how to run things from a terminal, the thing is that you need to pass the name of the file that you want to read files from as a parameter. So you would go, for me it would be pi. If you're working on a Mac, you would write Python 3. So pi, then I'm going to write the name of the file that I'm running. In our case, it's smallest int. So I go smallest int.py. And then I would write the name of the file that I want to use. So in our case, it's numbers1.txt. And if I run this, it says none because, why does it say none? Hold on. Let me make a quick check. Let me do print smallest int just to make sure that I'm doing what's supposed to be done. I don't think I saved it. I need to save the file. That's the reason. Sorry. There you go. So we have 12. We actually return 12. So that's the number that we're supposed to get from the first file, because that's the smallest unique file. We have 1, which is not unique. We have -8, which is not positive, and 12 is the remaining smallest integer. In 2, I believe 7 would be the smallest, because 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6 actually repeat here, and 7 is the smallest one, which is not repeated. 8 is also not repeated, but it's higher than 7. So if we run this with numbers 2, we should be getting 7. But let's see. Yeah, there we go. So the code works. So this is it for the first one. If there are any questions on the algorithm that you use, or maybe you have some other ideas of how this could be done, or you have whatever comments, please let me know. So just as a reminder, I will type
Steve
this.
raised his hand.
Steve, okay, sorry, I did not see that. Steve, yes, please shoot your
No
question.
worries. Maybe this is a superfluous question, but in the comments for this function, it says refers to a file containing a single integer on each line. So why do you have to declare integer again on line 16?
Why do I have to do what? Sorry, one more time.
Why do you have to specify int again on line 16 when we already know everything's an integer?
Yeah, but the problem is what this means is that I think this is a bit of a misnomer. The thing is that inside files, you cannot have integers. Text files contain only text.
Okay, all right.
Text is a string. So you would get a string which is a representation of the integer, but you have to actually turn into the data type int, because otherwise you would get a very weird thing where you compare, the comparison that's going to be lexicographic instead of mathematical.
I understand. It was just a little thrown because it says it contains a single integer. So that's what I was saying.
Yeah, but you always need to keep in mind that text files contain strings. They cannot contain anything else, and then you need to convert. But it's a good question.
A note on that. I think the instructors gave you that hint because if there were a character in the file, your line here where you line 16 would bomb, it would create a runtime error. So they were telling you, don't worry, we're not going to create runtime errors.
Yeah, that's what they meant. That it would not contain letters or empty lines or whatever. They would only contain digits. That would have been the correct way to say it. That each line only contains digits and the minus sign at the beginning of the line. Okay. Any other questions, or shall we go into number 2?
Excuse me, and what in the case when we have all the numbers the same? For instance, 5 of 6 or something like this.
Right. So in our case, I don't remember whether I think it was said that this is actually a good question, because I remember in the assignment it said that there would be at least one positive number for sure, but it did not say that there would be a single positive unique number for sure. So in your case, this is a very good question. This is an excellent question that you had in your that you had, because then the behavior of the function becomes undefined. We do not know what we're supposed to return if all of the integers are the same, because it's not specified. So it would be for us to decide. So for instance, then there are 2 things that we could do. We could either return this integer and say, okay, so this is the integer, but it's not unique, which is probably not very correct. Or the second idea would be to actually, and this is what you did, would be to actually have smallest integer saved as none, and then you would go through all of the integers, including the first one, and you would need to add add a condition, or maybe no, not like this. If all the integers are the same, you would have an empty unique positive numbers list. And if you have an empty one, you could write if not, which means if you have an empty list, for instance, return none. And I think this would be a good way of doing it. And we could actually test it. Let me create a new file called numbers3, numbers3.txt. And in this file, I'll just go 66666, something like this, right? And let's try running it and seeing whether this would work. I would run this on number 3. And as you can see, in this case, it would return none. And I think this is a more logical return value in the case that you discussed.
Okay, thank you. And one more question. Could you comment on this? What happens in the main function? What do we really do there?
Sure. Let me just finish this comment so that it's clear what it does. If no unique positive integers remain, return none. Okay, so the main function, what it does is the following. Here you have so you have a module which is called sys, which is short for system, which allows you to do some things with the operating system. And argv is a variable which does the following. When you run in the terminal, when you run, for instance, this, argv returns to you a list of strings starting from here and until the end. So in our case, argv would first have the name of the script that we're running. So in our case, smallest int.py, and then all of the parameters that we're sending into the file through the command line. And the reason why we're doing the slice, because we don't care about the name of we don't need the name of the script itself. We're only interested in whatever is written after it. So in our case, we get this name, and then it says if the length of this list is 1, which means if there is only one thing sent, in this case, this is the file name, so we grab this as the file name, and then we send this file name into our function, get back the result, and print the result. So does that make sense?
Let me see. So the length of arguments is 1, so it means that there is only no parameter at
No,
all.
there's only one parameter, and that parameter is the name of the file from which we're reading the integers. So initially we had two parameters, but we discarded one of them using this slice.
Okay. I
So
can
now
see
args contains only one parameter, which is
yes, that's true.
numbers3.txt.
Yeah,
So
but can we, excuse me, can we go back to args 0? If in args we have we can, because it's a mutable. It's args 0 is different than this slice. Yes, so
actually args is the slice. So this slice contains only
that's
one
right.
value, is numbers3.txt, and it's at the 0th index.
Yeah, but in the slice we didn't took the first one, you know.
Yes, we discarded this one.
Yes. So if
we only
there
have
is
this
only
one.
the second, yes, if only the second is remained, so
So basically, you have this.
Okay, I understand. Okay, sorry, I just mixed something. Okay, sorry.
Okay, so is it clear now?
Yes, it is.
Okay, good. And to show you that, for instance, if I write something like, blah blah blah, which is going to be one more parameter, it's not going to do anything because the length of the arguments is not 1, it's going to be 2. And that's why it's not going to work. I could actually write something like this. Sorry. To show that it's an error, only one, parameter accepted.
Yeah.
And if I run this once again, I need to save it. I always forget to save it because in PyCharm it's saved automatically. In VS Code you always have to save by hand, which is there.
Yeah.
I get an error saying that only one parameter is accepted, and I'm trying to, put in 2.
Thank you so much.
Can we activate autosave in VS Code to save?
Maybe I don't know. Maybe there is this option, but I've never used it. So this is something if you probably type it in Google, you'll get the answer faster than you get it from me because I don't know.
Yeah, there is the option of autosave in VS Code, and it's actually recommended because most of the times we forget to.
I forget always.
Save
so
before
I'm always
running
surprised.
the
Why
file.
isn't it working? And then, of course, I forgot to save it. Thank you, Leah. Andrew, I think I saw you raise the hand a while back and then you lowered it. Do you still have a question or a comment?
Yeah, just the question is, if I'm loading an external file from my hard drive, where exactly am I putting in that file name? Instead of from the terminal, instead of running it from the terminal.
That's the issue. That's why we are doing this from the terminal, and this also answers a question by Steve. What's the advantage of running it directly in the terminal? Because for this specific program, you would not be able to do it differently. You would have to run this program from the terminal, because otherwise you do not have the option of actually putting it in unless you write different code. For instance, instead of this, you could write code in main, which would ask you as a user to enter the file name and then use that file name. So for instance, I could have written a different main function like this. I would say file name equals input enter file name. And then with this file name, I would do this. So I would go these two. I would not need to check this because it's going to be 1 by default. And now I can run this from VS Code, and it would ask me for a file name, and I would say numbers1.txt, and it would work. And if I run this and give a file which does not exist, it will break the program because it will say there is no such file or directory, which would probably, the same would probably happen in terminal as well. So does that answer your question, Andrew and Steve?
Yes, it does. Thank you.
Okay, cool. And the reason why now this one is working instead of this one, though I have not commented it out, is for the simple reason that I defined the same function twice, and it's the last definition that works. So this definition overrides this definition. So that's why I can do two in a row. Okay, so this actually took more time than I expected. So now we still have the second problem, which is called the grocery dict problem. So let me open it on my screen, and let me share my screen. All right, so the second one is the following. We need to implement a function which is called make groceries, which takes in a file name, and this file name contains strings of store names and grocery quantities that we need to buy from the store, and we need to return a consolidated grocery dictionary. So you would have stores as the primary keys. So for instance, you could have Safeway, Costco, whatever stores you have in, wherever you live. And then inside the dictionary of that name, you would actually have groceries as your secondary keys. So you'd have, I don't know, milk, cheese, eggs, what have you, as sub keys. And the values would be the quantity that you need to buy. So if you need to buy, 2 cartons of milk from Safeway, you would have a dictionary called Safeway. Inside that dictionary, you would have a sub dictionary which is called milk. And for milk, the value would be 2. So let's take a look at an example. So for instance, this is the text file that you have. I actually took these from Yerevan, where I live right now. So I have like a posh supermarket, which is called Parma. Then you have like a regular market, and you have a pharmacy, which is called AKG. So this is where we buy stuff. So, and as you can see in this list, I want from Parma, I need to buy 2 cookies and then 2 milk. And then I remembered that I need to buy 1 more cookie. And from the market, I wanted 4 apples, and then I sort of went like, duh, I need 2 more. And from the pharmacy, we needed like 1 package of diapers, 1 package of baby food. So the end result would have to look like this. I would need to have a dictionary which has the 3 store names as keys. And for each store, I would have a sub-dictionary. And inside this sub-dictionary, I would have the products as keys. So for instance, for Parma, I would have cookies and I would have milk. And I would have the consolidated total that I need to buy. So for instance, here I have 2 cookies and 1 cookies, that's total of 3. For milk, I have only once a mention for 2 milk, so it's 2. The same for apples, for instance, 4 plus 2 would be 6 for the market, and that's the only key I have there. And for the pharmacy AKG, I have diapers 1, baby food 1, baby food 2. This is actually incorrect. It's supposed to be 1. I don't know why I have 2 here. This is obviously a mistake I need to correct. So this is the second assignment. Please let me know if there are any questions here, if I need to clarify something before we go into it. Because otherwise, I think it's high time for us to, go into breakout rooms again. Once again, the breakout rooms are going to be the same, either you've completed this one or not. So join any one you like, and we'll see each other back in, I don't know, let's also take 15 minutes for it. All right?
You would still want to do breakout rooms?
Or do you think because we don't have much time?
Right. I mean, it's totally up to you. Because if we go into breakout rooms, you're gonna have to
We do not
stick
have
around
much time,
until
that's true.
about 9:15.
Okay, I agree. I agree, and it's probably something which would take a bit more time, maybe. So let's try doing this together. I agree. Yeah. Let me then share my my screen one more time. Hold on. I'll close the extra files, groceries. Let me share my screen. There we go. Okay, agreed, agreed. Good. Okay, so here is the file that we have. We actually need to create two functions here. The first one is called make groceries. We're given a file name. We need to somehow read the groceries from the file name, save it into a dictionary, and return this dictionary from this function. The second one is called add item. So what it does, it actually takes a list of groceries. It takes a specific store, a specific item, and a specific number of items, and then you add this to the existing dictionary without breaking the dictionary. So if the store exists, you add to that store. If the store doesn't exist in the dictionary, you need to create it first. If the item exists in a store, you add to it. If the item does not exist in a store, you actually have to add it first. So let's do this. Let's start with this one. So this is a smaller function. And it actually, there are three places here where we need to think about things. So, and I'm going to, let's do this like a back and forth. So the first condition that you see here, which is pre-written for us, it says, let's say you have a dictionary, and inside this dictionary, we do not have the store that's given to us as a parameter. So the first thing is, how do we write this line? What do we need to do if the store is not non-existent in the groceries dictionary? Any ideas?
Somebody type an answer in the chat. So,
okay.
You need to define an empty dictionary.
Okay, so we need to actually add an empty sub-dictionary to our dictionary, because otherwise, if we try to add something to a dictionary that doesn't exist, the program would break. So absolutely correct. What we need to do is take our groceries dictionary, and under the key store, we need to create an empty sub-dictionary. So this is the sub-dictionary in which we're going to save the specific items with specific quantities. Okay, so we're done with number one. So now we are going to that specific store. We are now falling into this sub-dictionary and working with this sub-dictionary. And the question is, if the item that we are trying to add is non-existent in this specific sub-dictionary, what do we do here? And of course, Anna is already, in front of everyone. We need to create a key value pair, which has item as the key and number 0 as the value. So basically we're saying here inside our inner sub-dictionary, which is the same as this, under the key item, for now we have 0 items, because we have not added anything yet, but we're about to. Because the next question is, once we are sure that we have the store and we have the item inside the store, what do we need to do here before we actually return the updated grocery? So basically, the question is, how do we add to a specific store a specific item of a specific number? Yeah, I'm sort of wondering, will anyone except Anna, give me answers? Otherwise, it's a one-woman show. But that's absolutely correct. We now need to add to this specific key in our sub-dictionary. item, we need to add the number of items which is passed to us as a parameter. So one more time, this is the finalized function. First, we check if the store exists. If it doesn't, we create a new empty dictionary with that store as the key. So now at line 28, we know that this subdictionary exists. Next, we check whether the item is in that subdictionary, and if it's not, we create it once again as a key with a quantity of 0, because we have not added anything yet. And then, regardless of the condition, we add the number to this key as a value in order to increase the number of the quantity of items that we have in that specific pair. And then we return groceries. So we're actually done with add item, but we can check whether it checks out. So let me import doc_test and let me run my favorite doc_test.test_mod here in order to check the doc tests which we have in the doc string here. And if we run this, you will see that we did not get any errors. So that means that all of the tests went through fine. So we're good now. Now let me look in the chat quickly. Can you also do grocery store item plus equals num? Yes, Martha, you could do that. The reason why I think line 29 is in here is just to shorten the syntax. But you could absolutely get rid of this line, and here instead of inner use grocery store, and here instead of inner use grocery store. And I think that would have been the way I would have done it. But since we're given, already code that we need just to append to, I'm working with the variable that's given to me. But you are absolutely correct. Yes, that could be done. Easy enough. Okay, so now let's take a look at the second function that we need to work with. This one is called make groceries. So this is the initial empty dictionary that we have. We open the file. We read line by line. We get rid of the extra /n at the end. So now the question becomes, how do we turn something like, let's take a look, how do we turn something like this? Let me just write it here as an example. We need to write, so we would actually at this point in time have a string like this, and we need to somehow parse this into usable, content to pass to this function. So at the end, we would need to do groceries equals add item, and then we go groceries, we get store, we get item, we get num. So the problem at the moment is that we do not have store, we do not have item, we do not have num. How do we get them from this string that we read from the file? So let me look in the chat. Can you nest inner dictionaries as you need? Yes, I mean, you can have dictionaries within dictionaries within dictionaries within dictionaries, so there is no practical depth to the number of dictionaries you can have inside one another, much like with the lists. You have 2D lists, 3D lists, 4D lists. The same applies to dictionaries. Can this be solved using strings as one of the solution? Store and index, line index. Yes, Anna, sure, you could do that, though I would propose a simpler way of doing it. But yes, you can do it the way you are doing it if it checks out in terms of, I think it does, yeah, check out in terms of correct slicing. But I would use the same option that's proposed by Vicky, which is actually using split, because it's a lot more, it's easier to read than, going with all the indices back and forth. That's a bit harder to do with slices. Yeah, so the first thing you would need to do is get the store from this. So I would go, store, and then the like, I would call it the rest, or I could call it whatever I want. and I would go store comma the rest would go from line dot split by colon. So then inside store I would get Safeway, and inside the rest I would get eggs comma 1. So now I have store, but I do need the item and the num, so I would go item comma 1 equals the rest dot split, and here I'm going to be splitting by comma because here they are separated by a comma. And now I would have item, I would have number, I could pass all three of these into the add item function, I would get the result an updated dictionary, and then at the end of the function I would return it, and it would be printed beautifully here using the print groceries function. So let me save this. Let's make sure that this would actually work, that I'm not hallucinating. So it's going to be groceries, sorry, it would be pie, groceries, and let's go with short list first. Okay, there is, of course, yeah, there is one thing that I missed, and the thing that I missed is I would actually need to turn num into an integer. Remember our conversation with Steve about, you know, the file containing integers. It does not contain integers because this is a string. So I actually need to apply int here in order to avoid this specific issue. So let me open the terminal again. And this time, there we go. It says you need 3 eggs from Safeway, you need 3 coconut milks from Safeway, you need 12 croissants from Costco. If we try the same with the long list, we would get something longer. We would also get, you know, flour from Safeway, and coffee and sugar cookies and pineapples and what have you. But just to make sure that everything is working, we could once again run, you know, doc test somewhere here, doc test mod like this, and see whether we get any errors, and we do not get any errors. So to make sure that this is the case, let me run this again. As you can see, there is no output, so that means that this one goes through without any errors. And we're actually done before, you know, our time is up. We actually have 1 minute. Yes, Mancy, as we've seen, we do need to convert num to int. You saw this earlier than I did. So yes, solution with split. Anything, any questions on what I did here? Any comments, anything you would like to ask, share, shoot, let me know. Whether this is clear or I need to do some clarifications or what have you.
So Alex, line 52, I know we're passing groceries as a dictionary back and forth. I'm a little confused by assigning the variable groceries to the output of the add item function. I know it returned groceries also. I was able to get it to work without assigning groceries.
Yeah. And the reason for that is that since dictionaries are mutable, you do not actually have to return the dictionary that you changed inside the function. Because when you pass groceries as a parameter inside the function, this parameter points to the same exact dictionary in memory. So whatever changes you do here, you do not have to actually return them. So what I'm saying, you could actually get rid of return groceries here, and here you could do this, and you would still get the same result. But you would get failures of the doc test because the doc test actually checks the values that are returned from a function. And in your case, you would be returning none. So in order for this not to break, you could go back and where was that?
Line 52.
No, this one doesn't matter. This one matters.
Okay.
So now if I run it, you will see that there are no more errors because the function does return something, so doctest works on it, but it doesn't need to be actually saved because it's saved by default, because it's immutable.
Okay.
So
Thank
I
you.
think the reason why they had return groceries
doc tests.
here is for doc tests. And since you're returning something, wouldn't it be like logical to actually save it somewhere? So let's go. This is more explicit. There is something returning. I'm saving that, updating the variable.
Okay, thank you.
But it's a good question. So yeah.
Alex, I have a question on the split function. It returns a list. I looked at the documentation.
Yes.
And I haven't seen that you can use that assignment use, say on line 50, where I've seen that for tuples, where you say I have a tuple of two values. I can assign, store, comma, the rest, that tuple into those variables. I haven't seen it with a list. So does that always work?
Same logic. It would actually, I think, also work with dictionaries. If you had a dictionary, for instance, with 3 keys, and you try saving it into 3 variables, I think it would actually save those 3 keys into each variable, but I'm not sure. So I will not promise that. But tuples and lists, the same logic applies. So you can do comma-separated variable names, and then the result of the split will be saved one by one. But you have to make sure that the number of variables that you have on the left side is equal to the number of elements of the list on the right side, much like with a tuple. Otherwise, you would get an error.
Thank you.
Okay, so now Mansi, when using with open file name, we have to give the full path and file name, right? You do not have to, it's not necessary to give a full path, but here's one discussion which would probably take a lot of time about using absolute paths versus relative paths. So the difference is that an absolute path is something where you write the location of the file starting right from the disk letter on Windows. I don't remember how it's done on the root directory in Mac. And you would have to write the entire path, like I don't know, the first folder, the second folder, like desktop, whatever, where you have your file. And there are obvious disadvantages to that, because first of all, you have to write sometimes a very long path, and it's very prone to mistakes. And the second reason is that it would only work for you. So if you were to transfer that program to someone else, it would not work for that person unless that file is located in the very same folder that was located on your computer. If it's located in a different folder, your program breaks because Python cannot find the file. So then you have relative paths, relative to the folder from which the script is run, which is sort of easy because in our case, we have the files in the same folder, so we don't even have to write a path. We can just write, the file name itself. But if you have it in a different folder, you need to write a path relative from the place from which the script is launched. And in most cases, it's not a problem because the script is usually launched from the folder where that script is located. So for instance, when in a terminal, I run something from this path, this will be the relative path used. So the file is here. When I say py, groceries, it will launch from this specific path. So it will be relative to this path. But sometimes this breaks down, especially when you're working with IDEs, which for a variety of reasons can actually think that the working path is different from the path where the file is located. And I will not go into details because it's mind-boggling and it's going to just explode your brains, but you have to be aware of this, that you have to make sure that the IDE is actually working from the same path where you're expecting it to work, because otherwise you would get mistakes saying that, file does not exist, and you would go like, why it doesn't exist? Here I can see it, here it is. but it's actually looking in a different folder, and that's why it's giving you an example. So I hope this is a...
May I have a question? How is it for VS Code and for PyCharm? Do they differ in that respect, or they are similar in treating the paths?
If you are running through a terminal, you have to make sure that this line here, the path, is actually the one that you need. So if you are sure that this is the path where your file is located, then everything will work fine in VS Code, in PyCharm, whatever. But when you are running using these buttons, sometimes it's different. And I cannot give you a straight answer right away, like where the path would be. In some cases, it's really some different temporary path somewhere in the PyCharm directory, and you're going like, why is it that path? So sometimes you need to go in PyCharm, at least, you need to go into options, and inside options and preferences, you actually have to write out the folder which you want PyCharm to use when you run using this button.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I hope that at least partially helpful.
Yeah.
Okay. Any other question? Because I see Vicky's writing, I always use the full path for clarity. And this is good when you know you don't have to share your file with anyone. But if Vicky were to send her file to me and say, here is my file, launch it, it would not work for me because I would save it in a different directory and this full path would not work. The program would crash. Any other questions, thoughts, comments, parting words? Because otherwise we are done for today. And next time I will see you will be in about 3 weeks, because the next one in a week will be with Emma on APIs, and after that there will be a 2-week pause. Yes, I'm also glad that I'm feeling better, Martha. Thank you. Thank you, everyone. So if no more question, then I will see you in 3 weeks. And I hope you have fun with Emma working on APIs, because I know that's a fun exercise. Is it like the infinite story? Is that the one? Because if it is, it's kind of cool, because it allows you to interface with ChatGPT in generating an actual story, which is kind of awesome. And it's a new thing. It's a rather new thing for Code in Place. I think this is the 2nd year where you have this ability. So it should be very, very much fun. All right. So Dieter does have office hours tonight. Don't forget that. So if you suddenly come up with more questions, please visit these office hours. I'm sure Dieter will help you out. All right, everyone. Thank you once again, and see you next time.